Thank you, everyone. We're almost to lunchtime, but a couple more. My name is Christine Buggle. I'm a Senior Director with TransPerfect. We're a global language and technology service provider, helping to support a number of companies with implementing omnichannel strategies. So the presentation before was brilliant and teed us up with some of the questions that we're going to go into today, looking at localization and translation, some of the key things that people are thinking about when implementing a global to local strategy. So I'm joined by Ewelina and Scott, and we're going to go through some of the things and challenges that we've seen when implementing these strategies, and I'll let you both introduce yourselves.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. So first of all, I'm really happy to be here. The weather is amazing. I hope you all enjoy it. My role is I'm heading the content and partnership excellence team at Novartis. It basically means that I'm responsible for setting up global to local programs and also making sure that myself and my team, we set up the right partnership with our partners. I'm not using the word vendors because I don't think about our partners as vendors. And we think that it's really important to make sure that we understand each other, we understand our needs, and we can find a common solution to solve it. In the past, I've worked for companies like Sandoz, hi Dille, and also GSK when I was basically doing the same thing. I mean, it's not the same per se, and that's why I'm really excited for this discussion, because I hear we all have the same challenges that seems not to be resolved since a couple of years already. Scott?
Yeah. My name is Scott, and I am Associate Director of Digital Communications at Novo Nordisk. I've been at the company for a little more than 13 years. And I sit, so I'm maybe a little bit unique amongst this crowd because I sit in global communications, not within the marketing or the commercial part of the organization. And we have taken an approach to build up a center of excellence when it comes to managing a lot of the channels, social media channels, web channels, a lot of the content development, because we see, and we talk a lot about omnichannel or multi-channel, and I think sometimes global communications or more of that corporate element sometimes can get a little bit sidelined, and I think there's a lot to offer and a lot that we can do to help create this sort of global to local integration.
Wonderful, and thank you both for joining me. And Scott, you made a great point before our presentation that maybe we should have changed the title to Beyond Buzzwords instead of Beyond Borders. So we're going to try and bust some of those myths of buzzwords today as well.
Yeah.
So let's start off with sort of the why. Why do organizations and what's the main driver to creating a global governance structure for omnichannel? Because that's really what you both have been building on.
Should I start?
Ewelina, do you want to start?
So let me start exactly with those buzzwords, omnichannel. I hate to break those news to you, but omnichannel in pharma doesn't exist. And I'm not even sure if it's going to exist. I would rather say not. We struggle with having multichannel, and we dream about omnichannel. That's the reality. When we think about our customer experience, which I think should always be in the center of everything we do, it's not being met. So again, how can we think about things that are way more sophisticated as personalization or even modularity of the content we want to deliver if we didn't crack the absolute basis for communication with our partners, which is customer experience? And yesterday there was this situation when someone asked, if you believe that you are delivering valuable content to your customers, stand up, remain, up. And what we all almost did, we sat, right? And this is a very sad story because we still didn't fix the basics. And I think that is why we need to set up a proper governance in terms of global to local, because it's not about money. Of course it is a bit, right? So our leaders want us to save money. I agree with that, because we need to be more efficient and we need to have some funds to for example, fund the global drug development, right? But for me, money is secondary. Of course, we can make some savings, making sure that the countries are reusing our content. But the real deal is about making sure that we provide, as a central team, the right customer experience. We deliver the high-quality content for them. Because we all had the situation, we are different, we are different. The reality is that the countries are not different. You need to align, of course, on the strategy with them, but the execution of the content, that should be a global role. just to make sure that we deliver on the customer experience I just mentioned. And last but not least, standardization is a key. We need to have standards. We cannot have these fragmented environments, you know, the castles within the company when everyone does things differently, right? Because that do not deliver any value when it comes to the company at all.
Yeah, and we've had many conversations over the past couple of days, and so we definitely agree on many things. And I think that for us too, it was a matter of trying to make sure that the capabilities that we had and the skill sets that we had were being optimized and used in the right way. And when every market was basically their own little island, there was a lot of skills out there that were not being fully optimized because they didn't have a lot of, they had a lot of work to do, but they were using some skills only a certain amount of time, and they had, I think a lot of people who work out in the affiliates know that, you have 17 different hats on and you have to do so many different things. And so we decided, well, let's create this center of excellence. And as our EVP once told us, she said, nobody gives you the mandate, you have to take the mandate. And we took that mandate to create this center of excellence. We took back the keys to a lot of the channels and said, we're going to be the ones controlling these channels. And at first, of course, there was, and we'll get to this in a little bit, but of course there was a lot of resistance. But I think very soon people could see that we can become the capability experts. We can help them, and they don't need to then think about these capabilities in the markets. They can actually allocate them somewhere else, concentrate more on some things that they weren't able to concentrate on before. And I think that was a real big motivator for us, is just to create that center of excellence and centralize those capabilities. And I think on the other thing too was this allowed us also the ability to actually have an insight into what was working and to be able to scale things that work, to be able to say, oh, this worked really well. Let me communicate that out to everybody and say, look what they've done in Brazil. Would you like to have this in your market as well? And I think this allowed us to do that. And without that, I think there was a lot of best practices, a lot of things out there that just went silent because nobody had the overview of it.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit more. One of the, Almudena mentioned in the previous presentation about co-creation and getting the local affiliates involved. So how do you try and consider the distinct needs of each local affiliate or market when you're also trying to create standards and optimize?
Well, I'm going to be a little bit provocative here because I don't believe we should engage them that much. I think the local market should be engaged on the level of setting up the strategy, but mostly to explain to them why we want to, pursue such opportunity, right? So they are aligned with the overall strategic direction of the company and also the TA lead, right? But at some point we need to say stop. We need to say stop, and we need to deliver on those standards and templates to build the center of excellence when we have a bunch of people who really understand what good means. So we are not ending in this, infinitive loop of conversations that I don't like pink and I don't like black, and we should formulate it differently. Because if you put 7 people in a room, everyone would have a different opinion. And we spoke about the MLR. I mean, I have still a little bit of PTSD trying to approve the content on the global level for local affiliates. Because no matter how many checklists you actually gather, how many discussions you have with local people and medical team on regulatory requirement, you will still end up after delivery of the content with 57 comments in your approval system, right? So for me, we need to stop this, right? We need to make sure that there is a certain strategy. We deliver creatives that are aligned with the strategy. We deliver to the market something that is good enough, not 100%, but at least 80%. And we deliver this, and that's the key, on time. Because usually we are not on time. We are just before the cycle or after cycle meeting, right? And that's the key, that's the biggest problem. I'm pretty sure if we manage to deliver the content that is translated, already adapted, and localized in a way that we apply certain regulations that we know are important for those countries, it would become much easier for them to adopt the content instead of going to them, in English, it's not adapted, it's not ready, I will do it myself, it's faster.
Yeah. I think yesterday, and apologies, I can't remember exactly which presentation it was, but there was a discussion about 3 key elements to delivering content to HCP, and there was relevance and there was on time, and I think those 2 aspects too we can also apply to how we work from a central global position to all the markets, and that is to help build that trust, and it does take a bit of time to say we can provide relevant content and we can always provide it to you on time. And I think that when the markets could see that we could actually deliver that more in a much more timely manner than the agencies that they were using before, I think that would help to build the trust. But another thing, all the way, just getting back to the beginning of that too, I think the first thing we also did was to bring all the affiliates on board through webinars, explain this is how the new setup's going to be, this is how your role is, but also to get out of that, oh, you're global, you don't know what you're talking about. We decided, what are the KPIs? I mean, let's not even discuss who's right and who's wrong, because the data and the KPIs are going to be the element of truth. And I think when we started to agree on that, we could also just have a very open and, for the most part, objective conversation about what was working. And when a market came with a particular idea, we could actually go to the data and say, well, let's see how we could assume this could perform, or let's even try this out. And I think that was another thing, that even though there is this global to local setup, we also need to give a little bit of room for variation. It's a little bit like genetic evolution. I mean, you have to have a little bit of diversity and variety out there, because if not, you're going to miss some of the things that potentially could work that you're not thinking about. So we do allow, a little bit of variation. Say, oh yeah, well, okay, this market, you come with this. I'm not sure about it, but let's try it and let's see how it works. Because if it works great, we can scale it across the rest of the global organization.
Yeah.
So to complement that, if I may,
Yeah.
I 100% agree with you. Like, the KPIs are extremely important, right? Because who will judge if the content is good, right? Not me, not you.
The user.
It's the data,
Yeah.
it's the user, right? And I remember we had this discussion in the morning about KPIs, dashboards, etc. And what was a very interesting situation in my life a few weeks back, we had a discussion within the team, broader team, about creating the dashboard for stuff we do, right? And it's still the conversation about impressions, CTRs, open rates. We need to show it in the dashboards, because always in the dashboard we have those data, right? And no one is actually thinking about what is the key campaign objective and did we deliver? And that's the ultimate KPI, right? And a funny story, which is again not that funny, when I visited our agencies a few weeks back, and I had an honest discussion on how we work with agencies and what is missing, the key comment was that we do not provide any performance data to them. Nothing. So how they can understand how to deliver on good creatives if this is not connected at all with the KPIs, right? So that's why it's really important to have something that is objective, and also to be sure that we really focus on customer experience. Once again, I will be saying this all the time, because I am a part of a bigger customer experience team, because without it, there is no way we can deliver valuable content if we do not understand which need we are actually addressing.
Yeah. And so you've kind of led into another question that I had, was like, how do you actually measure the success of the overall structure? And is it focused on, as you said, just the customer experience? How do you measure that? Or is it the engagement with the local markets and whether they're picking up the strategy? What are you focusing on?
You want to start?
Yeah, I mean, it is the KPIs, and we have dashboards. We have a dashboard for websites where we have an aligned and agreed upon metrics, and these are the ones we track. I think to Ewelina's point is that we can't have a gazillion different numbers in this dashboard, because one, no one's going to figure out what it is that's important, and two, people are going to choose the biggest number as the one that for success. And so we want to make sure that if this campaign is driving HCPs down the funnel so that they actually sign up for an HCP portal where they can have access to gated branded content, if that's the objective, that's the one we should be looking at. And it's up to the operational, the content creator. And I think it's a great idea to share this back to the partners who are helping to develop the content. Those should be operational metrics. They should see, okay, how is this progressing people down the funnel and so on, and how should we iterate content and channel mix for that. But for the markets, we should be looking specifically at the key KPI. And I think dashboards has been one of the ways we measure success, and it's about building up trust, showing that we can have this set up and we can meet KPIs, and if we don't meet KPIs, that's fine. We can work together to figure out how to do them better. But I think that's how we have to build up that trust.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to build on that because, again, I totally agree with what you said. What I'm trying to do, I'm trying to simplify stuff. So my key areas for KPIs are production data, production KPIs. So how quickly and efficiently we can deliver the content to the countries, right? That's the one. And it's about the speed, it's about the quality, it's about turnaround time, etc. Then the second one is about the content itself, or should I say, the first position is the content itself. So what is the efficiency of the content, right? Because it's extremely important to have this look back to content creators to say, this didn't resonate well. But focusing a little bit on this area, it's again important to educate the markets, but also global teams, that your role is not ending on pushing the button send. It's just the beginning. And I've seen so many situations when, the biggest success is about deploying 12 emails, 27 emails, 30 emails. I would say we can do the same job with 2, but need to optimize. We need to observe. We need to look at the web page, why they actually didn't go down the page and fulfill the action we expected them to do. That is very important, which I can say not many people actually do. And the third one, of course, is about the performance, but performance understood exactly as we said, the key KPI of the campaign. So what we actually want to achieve. Did we really convince our customers to do a certain action, or maybe increase the awareness if that's about the awareness, right? And last but not least, again, I don't necessarily believe in the metrics like simple impressions, open rates and CTRs, but I do believe in the depth of engagement, and that is something that we really want to measure to make sure that we have the right depth of engagement with our customers.
Thank you. And maybe just to bring it back to one of the topics that was mentioned earlier, the co-creation and the local piece, one of the biggest challenges organizations come to us with asking to solve is that global have a strategy, we want this translated, we want it done fast, we want it ready to launch, and then on how do we engage the local markets, how do we make sure they're happy with the content? And obviously I have some thoughts on how we can do that, but outside of that, what are the other key challenges that you've seen when trying to implement the strategy and engage with the local teams?
I mean, where should I start? There is plenty. So I remember when, for example, Danilo said about legal, that the legal is destroying everything we want to do, right? Someone else said that, right? Is this recorded? So I partially agree. There are multiple factions that are not making our life easy, right? Both in global and in the countries. But for me, we shouldn't fight with it because that's not the problem. The problem is leadership. If we have a proper leadership, if our senior leadership understand what we want to achieve and they are supporting it, I can assure you that both legal and MLR, they will adapt and they will try to support. Because actually I see it right now in my own company, right? So I would start from top, right? The biggest challenge is to make sure that we are on online here and countries get the hard message, we call it mandate with love, and there is more mandate than love. So they know that this is the strategy and this is actually important, right? And then in terms of, day-to-day work, translation is obviously a challenge, right?
Yeah.
And that's why we need to create a solid partnership so we can address this challenge. Because to give you the example, I'm Polish, I'm native. It's impossible for me to translate any medical content, right? It would not be a good translation because it's not about the translation, it's about the transcreation. So to make it work, we really need a proper pre-onboarding to the service. We need to go to the market. We need to discuss with them. What do you want? What is your tone of voice? Give me your materials you translated before so we can just absorb it. And this is exactly what we do right now with this team. We want to create a framework that is maybe not bulletproof, but at least will help us to deliver something that is 85% okay. Because if the content is great, but it's translated not perfectly, then the content is not great. That's the reality.
Yeah.
And last but not least, of course, MLR. This is a challenge, of course, because you have medical and legal aspects, and then local regulatory. And then if you start even thinking about single countries like France, 4 visas, period. Australia, pub submission. You can go crazy when you try to create a roadmap for content delivery, right? So again, it's very important to plan the demand, to plan what is the priority. And I think that's actually the key. You need to understand what is the priority, right? Because not everything can be a priority. So finishing this very long statement is, you need to do a certain pre-work with the markets in order to be ready to fulfill their needs, at least 80% good.
Yeah, I mean, similar challenges, and maybe one other that I would point out, and just so in our web estate we have 3 code bases. One of them is a corporate code base, one of them is an HCP code base, and one of them is a patient engagement code base. And this is how we align them with a similar visual digital identity, and there's slight differences in the components and some of the functionalities. But essentially, they're all housed within one system. And I think one of the challenges we get is it works well for a year, 2 years, and then suddenly people want all kinds of new things. And they say, well, the code base that we have for example, the HCP, it doesn't do what we want to do, so we need to go about and upgrading this. And you say, okay, but have we looked at the use case of this? Is this new functionality? Are we chasing the shiny object, but we're not necessarily going to deliver any better on the KPIs? And I think that's always one of the challenges we get, is people pushing back on us saying we're dinosaurs and we need to continue to evolve and chase the new thing, whether it's AI or whatever. And I think that's part of the challenge, is just making sure we all stay grounded in, are we still able to deliver what our goals are and what our KPIs are.
Yeah.
Spot on. I mean, it's like shiny objects. I want a Ferrari, but I am riding a bike right now, right? Every pharma company does that. We want the newest technology. We want to be innovative, but at the same time, we are not even A/B testing. So I think that's, my comment on that is, let's really focus on fixing the basics before trying to do something innovative, right? Because we are not doing basic things. Yeah.
No, that's perfect point. And we won't go into all the different technologies, the AIs, that would just, we don't have enough time, but maybe we'll wrap and open for a question with one more. What piece of advice would you give to organizations trying to work on a global to local strategy?
So this is pretty funny, because I was thinking about this panel before it started. Like, we are probably, as a pharma marketers, not allowed to share the company details, how we do it, because you will just grab it and do it, and then you are faster than us. I could share with you everything I do in details, and you will not be able to pick it up and do the same, because your company is different, your stakeholders are different, even your markets are different, brands are different. Because I know it, because I was doing this in 3 different companies, and nothing I knew actually helped me a lot. I know that now I need to focus on certain aspects, but it's not like, oh, let's hire Ewelina, she did it there, she will do magnificent in Novartis. No, I still need to work really hard to crack it, because it's never the same. So my advice is, you will definitely fail, and that's fine, but you will learn and you will adapt, right? So don't be afraid of doing this. And also don't be afraid to content state the reality, because sometimes we are just doing it automatically, as this is always done in the company. Maybe we shouldn't do certain things that our management asks us to do. Just think about it and try to respond to that, and not repeat the same mistakes.
Yeah. Scott?
Yeah, we took a minimum viable product approach to it, and I think that really worked well for us. When we took this sort of global to local, one of the things we started off with is saying, okay, let's take everything we have right now and say, if all of this disappears right this moment, what are the things people are going to call us about in the next 5 minutes? What are things people are going to call us about in the next 5 days? And what are things people are going to call us about in the next 5 weeks? And we sort of categorize that and we say, okay, anything within 5 minutes or 5 days we keep, anything beyond that we let go and we see what happens. And then we build on from there. And this happened 2.5 years ago or so. And that was and it really worked well because suddenly stuff was gone and nobody ever called. It was like, okay, now we know we have a clarity of the forest so we can actually start to see what to add and what isn't even working in that. And I think that really helped us out a lot, was just to do a total clear out the garage and see what actually is really important.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. I think we're out of time, so if you have any questions, grab us afterwards, and thank you for the time today.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.